Morning, everybody. Welcome back to the next episode of the Create Sessions at Create. My name is Matt. I'm joined here by my colleagues Dana, Vanessa, and Sujit. We're going to be looking back at 2022 and the learnings that we've taken from there and how we can make sure that 2023 is another successful year for the company. I'll hand over to Dana. Introduce yourself and some of the things that you learned last year.
Sure. Morning, everyone. I'm Dana, Business Director. So reflecting on 2022, I think some of the key learnings or takeaways that we've experimented and experienced firsthand is, first of all, we need to keep experimenting with different formats and different platforms because, as we know, algorithms keep on changing. And it's like every day there's something new. Every day there's a new change. There's a new format. There's a new platform. So keep experimenting with new formats. And yeah, I would say this is one of the main challenges that we've been facing, and we just need to keep up with the trends. I'll hand over to you, Vanessa. What have you learned from last year?
Cool. I'm Vanessa, the business director here at Create. And I think for me, one of the most important things that we learned from last year is just brands actually paving the way to be a bit more authentic and transparent. I think, with the whole rise of the influencer space that we've seen over the last couple of years, I think last year, especially after the pandemic and last year, I think brands have realized that they really do need to have influencers that are a bit more relatable to their brand and not just a name or a face. And I think that's definitely kind of pulled through. And it's something that a lot of the brands are kind of now have it as a basic strategy for this year. So I think that's definitely been a win, I think, so that it's not too cluttered. But yeah, that's probably my take on it. I'll pass over to Sujit.
Thank you, Vanessa. Myself, Sujit, Performance Director here at Create. The key learning for me is to continue focusing on personalization of content. This is the key for any user, when I'm interacting with a brand. If the content is personalized, I have much more meaningful experience with that brand. And the same can go also for having much more interactive, giving much more interactive experiences to our audiences, consumers through use of AR and VR. That's something has happened less, but we should kind of do more of it for more of our brands where consumers can connect deeper in more meaningful way. And that's definitely, an engagement at that level drives deeper intent.
We'll pick up on what you said, Dana, about change. For me, from my client base, so I work across a lot of our tourism brands, that there's always that urgency to be first and quickest with the changes. How do you think it's different? What are the different approaches to doing that? Because I know, so when the bottom fell out of Twitter, when Musk was just taking over and making all of these sweeping changes, we didn't take a stance on anything particular. What we just shared with our clients was, these are the other platforms that are possible that are doing the same sort of thing as Twitter. Of course, none of them are as big. There's your Mastodon, Discord, those kind of things. But we just shared expertise and then worked with them to try and find a solution. Often case, as with the Twitch thing, there wasn't really a solution. Twitter dropped and then it bounced back up within a couple of months. But had we gone all in, for example, and said, this is what we have to be on now because Twitter's falling apart, we would have looked pretty stupid 2 months down the line. So how do you address that when it's, like you say, algorithms change, this new format's changed, we're ditching one by one. It's like it's a constant pressure. We can't just jump on it and hope that we're right. We have to try and manage their expectations, right?
It goes back to the clients and the brands and the type of brands and seeing what fits the brand as well. It doesn't mean that there is a one size fits all. So you shouldn't be across all the platforms. Obviously, I think you need to look at the client objectives, what are the platforms that would fit the brand as well. So some clients are on TikTok, for example. Doesn't mean that everyone needs to be on TikTok, although it is booming and it is the place to be, but it doesn't mean that, all the clients have to be everywhere. So we need to think strategically against, what are the objectives, of course, like going back to what you've mentioned, Twitter, there was that crisis, there was a certain scenario there. So make sure, first of all, that there is enough backup. So schedule regular backups, of course, gather all of the information and the database that you have in case anything happens in the future. But again, there are QBRs for a reason. So you need to keep an eye on, what is working well for the client, what's not working well. Maybe, experiment with, let's try and see for a couple of months if, we have some presence on a new platform, how is that going to work out? So it's all about, again, experiencing and seeing what works and what doesn't work, basically.
I also think, though, like brands, I think over the last couple of years, and clients specifically, there has been a shift in perception. They are open to experimenting. They're not as closed off as which is I think it's a bit of a bonus point for us because, otherwise, I'd say probably 3 years ago, we were always having to justify why we're recommending something. I think now people are a bit more open to, or clients are a bit more open. They're open to risks. It's probably not, locally, it's probably not as big or on the larger scale as it is globally. I would say that we're still a bit, timid and that's it. But I think there's definitely been a shift. So I think the conversations that we've been having over the last year or two has been a bit easier.
And numbers don't lie, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. To that point, cutting through the noise is key. Everyone is talking about, are you going to make decisions based on noise? Or are you going to look at, what the real data says, right? Like we were looking through our research and insight tool, Global Web Index, GWI. Yeah. That's when it was like eye-opener for us, right? We expected Twitter to drop, but no, just drop for a month, then again it picked up, So just being flexible, not like, being emotionally driven by the noise is key as well, Absolutely. Look for data.
Yeah, that's really important. As long as we're validating what we're saying, and it comes from a position of expertise. You said it there, Dana. The QBRs that we've introduced more recently start to validate our position more and more. So when we do say something, they're more likely to take a punt on that. We don't have to sell something every single time, but it's more just like we need to be aware of this. Okay, build on that, come back to it, and try and have that position, which is a nice little segue into. We're recording this the day after ChatGPT 4. Probably by the time this goes out, ChatGPT 5 will be out and we'll already be behind schedule. How are you managing, or how are we all managing those kind of conversations with our clients? Because it's not just for our industry. So it's much bigger, right, than just a change in an algorithm or a shift on platform or something like that. Has anybody had those conversations in the last 24 hours yet?
Yeah, I mean, there were funny conversations when it just kickstarted, not in the last 24 hours. I'd say clients were a bit excited, not for our win of any chance, because they were just like, oh, maybe we could have quicker turnaround. And we're like, no, that's not happening. But I think at the start, for me specifically, clients did think that this would, and this is a conversation we've all read, that, it is going to downtime on the resources, it's going to help with quicker turnarounds and all of that. There is truth to that, to the sense that I think ChatGPT for us, and specifically for the teams that we're working with, is having its research, I would say. That is something that I would give it. But, and the clients are seeing that research phase is helping, I think. But yeah, no crazy conversations outside of that for me, at least.
Yeah, I think it helps with maybe, as you said, it helps with research, coming up with new ideas, thinking out of the box sometimes. But there's still room for error, I would say. So we shouldn't 100% rely on AI and these machines, because it's still in that phase, but it could definitely help with, our content planning, help with the framework that we come up with.
Yeah.
And this is what we started doing in most of our brands. But to say that we've established a solid plan, it's not yet. Yeah.
But that's it. So how honest are we with our clients that we're using it, or why we're using it, or when we might use it? I find I had a conversation with our clients directly about it, again, specifically around turnaround. I was very honest. I said, at the moment, we're not using it because we don't think it knows enough about our relationship with you. But what we'll start to do is build it in, and then we'll see how it works, and then we can rejig.
We already started building it in. Some of the platforms that we're using has that as an added-on feature now. So Amplify, for example, they've introduced this as a new feature. So we are using it, and as I said, like it helps with the research phase and the planning, but that's it so far. So we need to keep an eye and see what's gonna happen.
And we don't want to. We think back. Somebody said to me the other day, "Remember the metaverse?" And you think, if we imagine we'd gone all in and we built this whole function on the side, and then we told our clients that we could deliver it, and then actually that was a waste of time and money. I mean, I'm sure it will come back, but it's about that slow build and earning the authority within our client conversations that, look, we will bring it in, and we will try and make it work. It's coming back to what you said about that personalization as well. Can the AI software be responsible for that hyper personalization? Because for us, it's someone like Sajid that's looking at all of the data, us with our relationship and understanding the audience types more. We still need to add that layer in, right?
For sure. And I think like me and Sajid were just working on one of our clients' upcoming campaign. And I think while we could get a lot of the basic structure for our campaign in terms of, because we were doing a full funnel campaign for this client, we could get just the features in and what the price is, how is the entire structure going to look like. But to add that human element, which I'm sure all of our brands currently, it's just the basic need and the requirement. That's something that we still need to add, and I think that's I don't think AI has reached a level just yet. Don't quote me.
It depends when this goes out, right?
I think it still needs some humans.
I agree, especially now with brands going towards humanization and like customer also is all about human interaction, and they want to speak to real people. They don't want to speak to a chatbot. How many times we got frustrated when you want something and you're talking with a chatbot and you get frustrated because they don't understand what you're saying. So
there was a bit of frustration with some of the local brands as well, like when some of the banks had their customer experiences.
We know who you're talking about.
It was very frustrating, I think.
Yeah.
And it's good that brands are accepting the audience's, feedback and have now gone back to what it was before. But on the other side, I'm not sure if you guys saw IKEA, I think for the last couple of years, have been doing this whole VR thing where you can select a furniture or a piece of whatever you like, and you can kind of place it in your action room. I find that that is cool, and I think that is for getting immersive experiences that is personalized. I think that are really definitely paving the way.
But understand that IKEA one, they understand why they're doing it. It goes back to your point. Do all of our guys need to be on TikTok? Absolutely not. Do all of our brands need to have AR-generated something that facilitates people's decision-making around that brand? Absolutely not. But you have to, I think as agencies, you're always under pressure to try and be first, biggest with something new. But you have to kind of hold your client's hand through the process, right? So make sure they know why they're using it.
Yeah. For sure. That's true.
Yeah, the advertising side, it still requires huge human involvement. AI came into picture 6-7 years ago, when all the platforms started reaching out, guys, stop segmenting to the audience level where your audience is just 100 or 200 users. So they were our algorithms are getting better due to increased integration of the AIs. And then this thing came dynamic creative optimization. It does optimize to a level, but still requires a lot of human involvement to understand, how each set is performing. Does it require some tweaking and just continuous analysis as well, and
True. Just on that, since we're talking about personalization, I think we need to look at it on a bigger picture, on a bigger scale. So it has to be a full 360 approach, because you don't want to spam people in one platform or in one way. You have to look at the entire consumer behavior, how they're interacting with your brand across different platforms, different levels. listen to what they're saying, what they want, what they need, and then this is personalization. I believe it's not just like spamming them with emailers and newsletters, and that's definitely not personalization. It's listening to what they want, and obviously, again, it all goes back to database that we have and looking at the consumer behavior. And as you were saying, also about the funnel. So as you said, like look at different sets across each stage and personalize based on that.
One of the best campaigns I saw, I think it was end of last year, the Germany Tourism Authority for domestic tourism ran a campaign where anybody who searched for somewhere around the world, it's so good. The German Tourism Authority found something in Germany that looked like what they were searching for, and that was your next ad. So if you were looking for desert islands, a bit of a stretch. I don't think there are many in Germany, but if it was a piece of architecture or something like that, they found somewhere in a city in Germany, and that was your next ad, which I thought that needs. It would be interesting to see how that changes with the likes of AI-generated imagery and sourcing of imagery, if that's something that then can become popular. Because with one of your clients, with Volkswagen, if people are searching for different cars or different functions within it, can we then automatically pull up something that's hyper-specific about VW and push that to people and say, stop looking over that way and look over that way? It would be super fun if we could do that.
Absolutely. The key phrase here is like understanding consumer journey, as Dana mentioned, so that's the key. Understanding where your audiences sit in that funnel is the key. And that's something interesting we have tested on VW and trying to implement across other clients as well, is breaking down of collapsing that mid and lower funnel part. So consumer journey is not always linear. Somebody gets exposed to your a piece of content and they like it, they're really deeply engaged with it, and probably they are ready to go down the funnel to the lower part of it, to take action. So in that case, what needs to be done? We have to understand in the back end, how our audiences are qualifying. We have to bucket them accordingly. So, understanding consumer journey and bucketing your audiences, understanding the analysis side of it is the key to give that personalized experience for your audiences.
And that comes back to what we try and say to our clients, is that insights are different to data, and insights are led by the human intelligence around it, right?
Yeah.
Because the amount of times that you see the same phrase, insights, metrics, and data, and everyone just thinks it's the same numbers, right? But data is the number.
Yeah.
The metric is the other numbers that impact that number. And then the insights is what we, as working with, we've all worked on the same clients now for multiple contracts. We have so many insights about the behaviors of our audience that can just validate all of those things on top. It's people need to not forget that, basically.
Going back, Vanessa, you at the beginning of the conversation, you touched upon, influencers and rising trend of influencers, and what does that mean for our clients and, working with influencers. So something that I've also learned from last year and with our collaborations with a lot of influencers, I think clients don't need big names to associate themselves with. So it doesn't mean that you have to, go to macro influencers or celebrities, let's say, who have like 2-3 million followers. Doesn't necessarily be the case or be effective, because it also depends on the client's objectives and, what we're trying to sell, basically, and present our services through the influencers. So content creators, for example, is a new trend now, micro influencers or bloggers. So I think we need to also strategically think smart of the type of influencers and the tiers of influencers, and maybe, spread across, depending on the budget, or spread across like different tiers, and also experiment with, micro influencers versus having celebrities, and also like the rise of content creators, as we said, and who are content creators and how they're helping the brands. This is something that we've introduced recently with our clients, and it's helping massively, so yeah.
Look, from my side, my feeling of influencers, the three buckets of actual people that have influence in the industry, people that just have a big audience, and then content creators. that's the big difference for us in a tourism brand as big as the one that I look after here. They don't necessarily need the reach at this point. They have celebrity space in that. What they want is people that's just making cool things for the platforms. So that creator first approach, but then that opens the door to a really tricky conversation around how much control do you give to the creator. It's the hardest thing. And I personally firmly believe that if you're selecting a creator based on a number of things beforehand, whether that's their audience reach, whether that's their style of edits, whatever it is, you need to just let them run with that output. You can approve it from a sensitivity perspective, what they put, but don't hold their hand through like every tiny detail. And that's been the biggest pivot for me in the last couple of years. Of gone are the days. I remember a story from maybe 3-4 years ago. It was for Listerine mouthwash, and the backlash against the poor influencer that ran this picture that was so terribly like framed, and it was morning breakfast but with definitely an empty cup of tea, and pancakes that had too much like maple syrup on them to eat on the bed that she was sat, and it was so forced. The backlash was huge. If you just said, just talk to your audience about the product, I trust my product, I trust you because I've chosen you for the right reasons, it would have been so much more well, actually turns out it would have been less impactful because the backlash got Listerine's name out there more than anything else. But you need to understand you've brought these people on because you trust them for a reason, and you've done your due diligence, going back to the data points, going back to the insights of I've worked with them before, I know they're good. Just kind of let them run with it. It's that simple for me. You shouldn't have control because they've earned their audience without your control. Let them kind of do what they do already.
Do we feel like brands understand that difference though between what an influencer is and how we usually brief an influencer versus a content creator? I think the lines are a bit blurred, say still, but I'm keen to know, like, how is it for the clients that you guys work for?
I think with most of our clients, there is a clear understanding because they know like an influencer would have the product upfront.
Yeah.
And that's the product placement, you know.
Yeah.
Whereas a content creator tells a story throughout, you know, the product itself.
Yeah.
And creates content that is catered to the product. But with influencers, it's like, here's a product, you know, like exactly. So, yeah.
And how do we look at the value creation by these influencers? How do you measure that? You know, like the KPIs are, how are they being set?
Our KPIs, we look at the industry benchmark. So going back to, you know, the different tiers, and like if you're looking at a big name, a celebrity, let's say they have a massive follower base, right? So the engagement rate usually is lower.
Okay.
Versus when you're comparing engagement rate for someone who has like 10 or 20,000 followers. So it's looking at the industry benchmark, engagement rate, and again, it goes back to what the client needs and what their KPIs are. Do you want to compare based on the average benchmark? Do you want to compare based on, you know, your previous performance? If you're working with influencers, or you've worked with influencers before, are you looking for reach? Are you like, what exactly the purpose of the collaboration is basically?
Yeah, it's funnel dependent, right? If for you guys, if it was number of cars sold, it's pretty unlikely that an influencer is immediately going to drive a conversion for sale, right? So you just have to make sure that you set those metrics right at the beginning. I had a theory that you should only pay influencers, creators based on hitting your overall marketing objectives, because they got, I mean, it's never going to happen, but the idea that it's still part of all your various touch points. So if it's driving them to the website, but then if your website's not working, then you can't pin them against a failed campaign. So they have to be part of the broader conversation, and not pay them accordingly, obviously, because they've still done your work, but find a metric that isn't just dependent on things that you can't control. If you can control an entire marketing campaign, if it's improving sentiment, some of your clients, people aren't directly making a conversion based on what they're doing, but if your overall sentiment improves over the period of time that you've engaged with a pot of influencers or content creators or whoever, that should be your success metric. It has to be, go back to personalization, right? We have access to so much information now that we don't just have to see it right at the very top line. You have to try and make sure that you can make it more successful broadly with what you're trying to do.
That's absolutely correct. And you've touched on something very interesting that we've recently also, we're discussing with the clients is they, for example, like things that we cannot control. So one of the key metrics that they've said, for example, is we want to increase the engagement rate on influencers' pages. And we're like, wait a minute, we don't have any control of that. So we can't. But let's circle back to your objectives and what you want. Okay, increasing the sentiments, brand awareness, and associating the name with the influencers. So that's what we.
This is why, as an agency, trying to position ourselves as an integrated agency is having conversations, having people like Sajid that can look at broad data sets across all of the touch points. We're not just making content. We haven't just got production making a cool piece of video. We actually want to know what that cool piece of video did on the other platforms that we might not have control over, but at least let's be part of those conversations with your paid media agency, with your digital agency, and we can add value, because there's no point in us just, we did it, see it worked on our page, but if it's not satisfying anything else, we need to be part of that whole conversation. I wanted to ask you about the creator thing. I know with the client, with VW now, we've kind of changed how we set that account up, right? It's now creator first. So it's very content led at the moment. How's it worked? It's been an experiment for us, right? But I think it's showing good results.
We're in month 3. So we've done about 8 pieces of content that is completely different to anything that the brand has done locally, in the sense that up until now we were doing a lot of just adapting global content. Obviously, we get some really beautiful assets from the global headquarters. However, a lot of the assets are not really relevant for this market, and it's probably viable for anything in advertising, because they're showing snow and where we. So I think the content creator structure to add an actual content creator on the team has been really helpful. One, in the sense we're getting some really good localized content, so you can actually see the car. The second thing is, I think, with a lot of local brands, I feel like when it comes to with a lot of global brands, when it comes to the local counterparts, there is a bit of FOMO, I'd say, to like try and be cool. With the content creator, we've completely checked all of that, where we're seeing trends on TikTok and we're making sure the content creator is getting the car and just kind of shooting that. We've seen some really good performance for some of the assets on TikTok and on Instagram. So the clients are happy. I think getting the content creator access to these cars, I think, has been good.
That's been a huge step from our side on the account. Client approving it was very positive, and that has given us a lot of content for our paid advertising as well. And any given time we have at least 2 to 3 ads running in parallel. So there is that testing, on ongoing basis. We're plugging in new ads, the old ones continue, whichever perform better. So our experimentation on the account, it has given us a huge lift there.
I think it's given us a lot more room to play around.
Yeah.
We're not restricted anymore. We're not only getting really cool organic assets, but we're also getting much more dynamic assets for paid and for features specific stuff. So I think it's been good. We're looking in to see how we can constantly adapt it for the rest of the year. Obviously, they're going to have a few car launches, so we're going to try and see how that works. But I think as of now, it's been
a much easier conversation to have in 2023 than it would have been at the start of 2022, right? Essentially saying, don't worry about your brand guidelines. We've got this. We've got some cool young kid fresh out of university with a phone who's going to deliver something awesome, right?
But I mean, we do that for Visit Dubai as well, right? And how we've been doing it for Visit Dubai for quite some time now. Do you think that it's changed since we started now, given all of these different, the newer platforms coming in? How is that?
Yeah, 100%. We think we engaged a stack of local creators. Comes back to, not big audience. It was for our page. It wasn't even for their pages. We just appreciate and understand that there are some really talented people out there doing things that are interesting. What's critical for us is making sure that it doesn't look like we're following anybody. That's the hardest part, because I'm all for jumping on trends, but don't just do that trend again. There's somebody who in the region who's really shifted the whole VFX conversation, right? Does amazing work, with loads of brands, we actually haven't engaged with that person at the moment because it's like, oh, it's that guy again. And it takes nothing away from the amazing work he's doing. We're still engaged with it, but you want to be seen to be understanding a trend and taking it forward in a different way. So it's so much more than just that's what we could do next. It's like, okay, let's try and foresee what's coming up, understand this person's making cool content in general. We can trust them and give them a blank canvas to try and drive it forward. So it's all about adaptability. It comes all the way back to what we said at the beginning, and the key learnings from 2022. Flexibility is so critical, and not taking a firm position on anything, but just letting our clients know that we have a understanding about the fact that there will be a position needed to be taken, give them all the information that can be, and then see what happens. Yeah.
Great. I think this has been great, guys. The fact that we've actually taken a minute, come into the office early and, had this chat, I think it was some really good insights, some good learnings that we kind of discussed and just reflected on. But yeah, thank you. And for everyone else, stay tuned for the next coming sessions. And yeah, thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.